What is up, ladies and gentlemen? It is almost a new NFL season. I know you're just as hyped as I am. And today we're going to be doing a tier list. These are all going to be my opinions, so try not to hate too hard.
You're fired.
You know how it goes. Nobody knows how the NFL season is going to go. You know, we all have our ideas about who's going to be at the top and who's going to be at the bottom, but the season is so short and there's so few games that it's really, really hard to predict. But either way, I'm going to do my best, and I hope you enjoy. So to start off with, I'm sure you noticed by now that we have our Dallas Cowboys tier here. So let's just throw the Dallas Cowboys into their respective tier. Am I blind? Where are the Cowboys? Oh, okay. All right. The Cowboys are worse than vomit, man. I mean, I don't even think it's worth ranking a team that is so consistently letting their fans down in the postseason. You know, realistically, we would probably put the Cowboys as a playoff team or maybe even contenders because on paper they're still so good and they'll still end with like at least a 10-7 record. But it doesn't matter in the end because they're not going to get past the first or second round of the playoffs. It's how the story goes. So they're not worth talking about. All right, we're just going to go in order of the teams that I have here. The Saints. This team is a real shame because they could be quite good if a few minor pieces were changed, like namely the offensive line. But anyway, they're not changed, so here we are. If the Saints somehow finish second in the NFC South, I won't be shocked at all. But is there any chance they make the playoffs? Nope. Derek Carr is still a solid quarterback, and honestly, that's one of the biggest shames right there is that he's being wasted. But Olav and Shaheed are threats at the wide receiver position. Kamara is, I don't know, he's on the lower side of running backs, admittedly, but he's serviceable. Taysom Hill still does weird shit every year. So basically, here comes an inevitable 7-10 year. That's just how it goes. So the Saints will be going in the on their knees behind Wendy's category. Please tell me you get that reference. All right. Next up, we have the Dolphins. I'm putting the Dolphins as a playoff team. Now, I know some people want to put them as contenders, and that might come as a shock that I'm not, but I can't look past the atrocity that was the end of last season for them. They were probably one of the favorites heading in to week 13. And, you know, there were quibbles like how they couldn't beat a great team. But their domination of every other team in the league made that less of a worry. And then they were up 2 touchdowns with just like 3 minutes left against the Titans. And they somehow lost. They somehow blew it to Will Big Dick Levis. How does that happen? From there, I had no faith in them. And you might say that if they hadn't ran into the Chiefs in the wild card round, they would have gone further, but I just don't agree with that. Mike McDaniels is a brilliant coach, but the Dolphins have some glaring defensive issues and a lot of inconsistency. So to the playoffs they go, perhaps even the wild card. Who knows? Perhaps even the wild card. I actually just realized before we do the Ravens, I need to put some context in here. The Kansas City Chiefs are the only team that are going to go into the favorites. The Chiefs are practically unbeatable. And America hates them, and God, I hate them sometimes too, but it's just the truth. Kermit the Frog has succeeded like nobody else has before besides Tom Brady. And he might even rival Tom Brady at the end of his career. So, like, we've got to give them their flowers. They're the only team that should be in the favorites because to beat the Chiefs takes luck, it takes determination, it takes a fuck ton of talent. Like, it's hard to do, man. So the Chiefs are going there. And now we can move on to the Ravens because I know people would be surprised that the Ravens aren't going in the favorites, and a lot of people will put them in the favorites, but the way that I'm doing this, the Chiefs are the only team in the favorites. So the Ravens are contenders. Now, I was genuinely so upset when the Ravens couldn't beat the Chiefs. This was a team I truly thought was going to do it. I was wrong, of course, because Kermit the fucking Frog is that guy. Anyway, one of those sentences I never thought I would speak. The Ravens added Derrick Henry, and Zay Flowers is poised for a breakout year. No reason not to put them in the contenders. Just not much to talk about either. The Bengals. I want to be clear. The Bengals are going in the playoff category, but they're going at the very, very top of the playoff category. I know everyone's going to hate me for this, and again, let me clarify, they're at the very top of this category, but I can't justify putting them as contenders. Burrow says he feels great, but wrist injuries can linger in aggravating quarterbacks, and that's not to mention the Bengals haven't done the greatest job of protecting him since he was drafted. Add on to this Jamar Chase barely being at training camp. And the running back downgrade from Joe Mixon to Zach Moss, who honestly, why is Zach Moss a number one running back option? But anyway, I could definitely see the Bengals failing to get out of the wild card, assuming the Ravens end up taking the AFC North. Now, if the Bengals take the AFC North, which would be a bit of a surprise, then they're obviously contenders. Anyway, I'm hoping all of this ends up being speculation and not reality. I'm just being logical here, though. Denver Broncos, and we all know where the Denver Broncos are going. Complete fucking vomit. Bo Nix. That name is probably the highlight of their team right there. Courtland Sutton is still around, I guess, but he's Courtland Sutton. He's not going to make or break your team. They got Josh Reynolds, who is at best league average. So I think this could end up being the worst team in the league. And it might not be close either. Let's just say that. The New York Giants, I'm going to be honest, the New York Giants might be close to vomit, but I'm not going to put them there yet. I think they're on their knees behind Wendy's for now. All right, look, the Giants are, I'm going to put them at the top of this category because they have a lot of good things going for them. They just drafted Malik Neighbors, who I've actually drafted in a lot of my fantasy leagues. I know there's some risk involved being Daniel Jones and all, but I mean, if you look at Daniel Jones's stats, like, People always say he's not an NFL quarterback, but like he is a low tier NFL quarterback. And I think maybe he can get the job done enough so that the Giants have something to look forward to in the future. Now, will he be their quarterback going forward? I highly doubt it, but it's just 1 year. He's been injured, lots of shit has been going on. It could be okay. They also only managed to replace Saquon with Devin Singletary, and Devin Singletary was really good for the Rockets last year, but he's no Saquon. And to be completely honest, I'm blanking on the other receiving names the Giants have right now. Oh, Darius Slayton. Yeah, okay, yeah. If the Giants make the playoffs, I'll be shocked. So for now, they're going on their knees behind Wendy's. Next up, we have the Vikings. The Vikings are another meh team, but they're probably at the top of the meh teams. You can thank Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison for that, but there's not much to talk about here. Again, Justin Jefferson is capable of carrying this team to the playoffs, but maybe not without a decent quarterback, and Sam Darnold is not your franchise quarterback. So there's not much else to look forward to. J.J. McCarthy maybe plays a bit this year, maybe. T.J. Hawkinson is also injured, and he's probably not going to return until at least mid-season. And he's a big guy for them, so... Oh, I apologize. I put them in the wrong tier. I meant to put them at average. Okay, anyway. Yeah, they're just average. Will they make the playoffs? Probably not. They're also at the bottom side of this average tier. The LA Rams... Okay, listen. This might be my hot take. But the LA Rams are, for me, a contender. Now, granted, they're going to be at the bottom of this contender tier, but... Alright, just hear me out. Is Puka the prophet? Is he the truth? Answer me. Because he might be. I mean, just look at those rookie stats. And let's not forget that it was his outstanding play that nearly got the Rams past the Lions last year. Matthew Stafford, I think, still has one great year left in him. And Rams fans, I think it might be your year. That doesn't necessarily mean winning a Super Bowl, but it means having a shot. Cooper Kupp is also due for a better season. The Rams love DeMarcus Robinson, who's been great for them. And Kyron Williams is still there. Maybe I'm too bullish, but I think it's only the Lions standing in the way of a real playoff run here. Next up, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are a playoff team. And they're higher up than the Dolphins for me. Am I crazy? No, tell me. Am I crazy? Didn't we watch this team beat the Eagles in the playoffs last season? Baker Mayfield is in the middle of a resurgence, but no one wants to talk about it. Anyway, they're running it back, and let's be honest, they might have the easiest division in the NFL to win. And if they work for it, I think they make the playoffs, and I think they do it easily. So, here they are. Detroit Lions. We know where the Detroit Lions are going. I'm tempted to put them above the Ravens, but I'm not going to do it. Honestly, I should put this team up with the Chiefs because they just look better the more and more I stare at them. It's perfectly exemplified by the fact that they have to split time between Gibbs and Montgomery because they're just too good. Now, do they have depths? they have depth issues at receiver. Yes, but like, doesn't everyone in the NFL? Anyway, they'll likely need to rely on their defense to be better than average like they did last year, but all I'm saying is I won't be surprised if the Lions beat the 49ers this year. Moving on to the Chicago Bears, who are also just average, but maybe a bit on the higher end of just average. Look, I don't think the Bears can beat the Packers or Lions to make the playoffs, but they're probably good enough to beat out the Vikings, so maybe there's a small chance they squeak out enough wins to land a wild card seed. Seems unlikely, but it's possible. Either way, they're in a damn good place after the offseason, leading a lot of valuable assets in a franchise quarterback, they hope. Their defense is solid, and they also landed rookie Rome Odunze and Chargers wide receiver Keenan Allen, who had a great year last year. They still have DJ Moore, and now they landed DeAndre Swift from the Eagles. So, I mean, like, on paper, that team looks insane. It's pretty much up to Caleb Williams now. He could flop, or he could take this team to the playoffs and greatness. The 49ers is another obvious one. I won't put them over the Ravens, though. Listen, I saw something in Sports Illustrated that this roster is aging, not from like a literal age standpoint, but from a time spent together perspective. And I actually kind of agree with it. The 49ers are too good to not be contenders, but they're also not a team that I look at anymore and believe they can actually beat the Chiefs. I'm looking for them to win the NFC again. Although the Lions, again, could give them some trouble, but maybe they fall apart in the playoffs. And like, listen, the future is not bright for this team. So after this year, they've got some big decisions to make, whether or not they win the Super Bowl. The Eagles, wow, we're just ripping through the contenders. I think this might be my last... Yeah, this is my last contender tier. Anyway, the Eagles are going to go below the Lions, the 49ers, and the Ravens, but above the Rams, because again, the Rams is like my hot take. The Eagles added Saquon and Jahan Dotson, and other than Jason Kelsey's retirement, they didn't lose all that much. Now, Saquon gives me pause because it's an interesting choice to go spend that much money on a running back when your quarterback does a fair amount of red zone rushing himself. But again, that doesn't take away from Saquon's talent, and it's definitely an upgrade from DeAndre Swift. Dotson might weasel into the slot, but either way, he won't have a huge impact. But he's good for depth issues. Anyway, their offense won't be a problem. Their defense got marginally better with the additions of Garner Johnson and a few others, but I'm not sure it can hold up the entire season, and we might see something similar to last season where they just collapsed in the final few weeks. But regardless, the offense is again so potent that making it to the playoffs and making a try at the title shouldn't be too difficult a task. Moving on, we have the Raiders. Now, the Raiders are pretty damn close to being complete throw-up, but if you watch Gardner Minshew play for the Colts at the end of last season, you'll know he's pretty capable. He had 15 touchdowns and 9 interceptions last year, along with 3,305 passing yards, making him nothing special, but certainly not washed. He's also a hippie. Yeah. The Raiders also landed Brock Bowers, who is an excellent tight end out of Georgia, and they still have Devontae Adams, of course, and Max Crosby on defense. Can't see this team going anywhere, but they're certainly not going to be the worst team in the league. So for that reason, they're going into their knees behind Wendy's. Next up is the Green Bay Packers, and as much as the Packers' run last year did encourage me, I don't think they're a contenders team, and I don't think they're better than the Bengals, but they will go towards the top of the playoff teams. The Packers could definitely end up being contenders by the end of the regular season. The offense is humming, and honestly, if Jordan Love is who I and every NFL fan thinks he is, the Packers will be just fine. I can't look past the defense, though, and maybe its weakness was exploited best when the Packers lost to the 49ers. I'll always say that good defense beats good offense. It's just something I live by. I grew up playing soccer and basketball, for those of you who didn't know, and I was defense-minded in both sports. You have an advantage on defense because the offense has to make decisions, and you just have to react in the correct way. So that's why I have the beliefs I do, but okay, I digress. The Packers can change my mind real quick, but I'm not making a risky decision based on one outstanding season, even though, like I said, it did give me hope. Any guesses about where the Washington Commanders are going to go? Yeah, I don't think so. Now, granted, they're maybe at the top of the vomit tier, but actually, I don't even want to say that. Now, one bright spot this team could have is Luke McCaffrey, who is just as physically gifted as his brother, who is, yes, Christian McCaffrey, but he plays wide receiver instead. Another YouTube channel actually brought this up, but He played quarterback in college, but switched to wide receiver when he transferred to Rice. That could pay dividends for him. Anyway, the rest of the roster looks okay on paper, but realistically, they can't beat many of the teams they're up against this year. I know people are going to look at Jaden Daniels' preseason performances and say I'm being too harsh on them, but some people were saying that about Bryce Young after preseason last year. Yeah, that didn't age well. Next up, we have the Cardinals, who I'm actually not going to put in the vomit tier. They're going to go towards maybe the very end of the Wendy's tier. Now, I know this team is going to finish near the bottom of the rankings, but there's like too many exciting things. Namely, Kyler Murray is back. They also have Marvin Harrison, and Michael Wilson he's not great, but he's there. Anyway, this team has a lot to look forward to, so that's the main takeaway, and it's hard to put them at the very bottom of the tiers just because of that. All right, the Steelers. I'm a Steelers fan. If you didn't know that, I'm a Steelers fan. I actually live in Pennsylvania. I have no doubt that they'll miss the playoffs. Now, I also have no doubt that they will go 9-8 again. But I'd honestly rather the Steelers focus on the development of Justin Fields instead of turning to an aging fuckboy and trying to make it past anything. The run game is definitely going to be a feature of the offense, given that they hired Arthur Smith. And Najee and Jalen Warren are certainly up to the task, but the task is too tall to beat out the Ravens and the Bengals in search of the NFC North title. Of course, when my mind is in a much less impartial place in a few months, I will tell you that the Steelers are about to go on the run of the century and make it to the Super Bowl. But it's not that time yet. Next, we have the Buffalo Bills. I have to decide where in this tier to place them, which is not an easy task. I think I'm going to place them for now right in the middle, because they have more upside than the Buccaneers and the Dolphins, but they can't beat the Bengals or the Packers. Now, okay, a lot of people are saying the Bills are just going to miss the playoffs altogether. Y'all don't know who Josh Allen is. I understand that they lost a lot of shit, but I don't disagree that they're not contenders anymore, or maybe for a long time. But to say that they'll miss the playoffs, assumedly losing wildcard ranking to teams like the Colts or the Jaguars, that's crazy to me. Josh Allen isn't going to lose steam just because he lost Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis. He has Keon Coleman now, who's a good receiver, and he has Dalton Kincaid, who's proven himself to be a talent. Their defense is still quality, and the Bills aren't out of the race as long as they have Mr. 6'5". Now, let me start by saying that the Falcons aren't a team that I'm all that high on. I know a lot of people think they're making the playoffs just like that. I don't think so. In fact, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but I will put them at the top of the just average tier. I think it's going to take a year or two for them to morph into the team that everyone expects them to be. Now, they still have a pretty major defense issue. Their division is easy, and their schedule is the easiest in the entire NFL, but I still think there's going to be too many growing pain issues to justify a playoff spot. Kirk Cousins is a bit of a roller coaster. And he's definitely an upgrade from fucking Desmond Ridder. Yeah, why was that guy a quarterback? Anyway, their offense looks pretty good, assuming Drake London is everything his limited role proved him to be. They don't have a lot of wide receiver depth, but honestly, I think it's okay. And if this year isn't a great year, the future is pretty bright. The Seahawks are almost behind Wendy's. They're very, very close, but not quite there. I am looking for Kenneth Walker to have a great season, and Geno Smith will probably do a little bit better than last season. I just don't think they'll get close to a winning record, though, so that's how it's going to be, and they're at the bottom of just average. Very, very close to Wendy's. I don't need to say much about the Patriots either. We know where the Patriots are going. They are better than the Broncos, but they're probably worse than the Commanders. If you're a Patriots fan, there's probably some shit to look forward to. You have a lot of rookies looking to prove themselves, and I'm sure at least a few will. I'm kind of zipping through these teams right now, but the Browns are just average. Now, they're close to the top of just average. They're better than the Steelers and the Bears, in my opinion. But listen, 2 years of injuries is significant, and Watson is suffering from a worse team now too. They still have the weapons to get it done, but it would require a lot of luck and determination. I don't see it happening in the AFC this year. The Texans. Listen, I so desperately want to put the Texans in the contenders category, but I do kind of feel like I need to see if Stroud is the next number one quarterback or just like a top 5 quarterback, because that really does make the difference. Let's be honest, this team on paper has almost no flaws. Not just 2, but 3 receivers who are capable of catching anything Stroud throws, and throw he will. A new running back in Joe Mixon, who is capable and definitely an upgrade from Singletary. Dalton Schultz, Kaimi Fairbairn, the list can go on. Winning the AFC South should realistically be a walk in the park for this team, but they aren't proven in the playoffs, and I don't know how far they can go. So the Texans will go at the near top of the playoff teams. Los Angeles Chargers. I know a lot of people want to put the Chargers in the lowest tier of all tiers, but I don't think the Chargers can be put there. Look, Justin Herbert is the only thing holding this disaster of a team out of the vomit category, I'll be honest. But if Herbert wasn't injured for most of the season last year, I don't think they'd have done nearly as badly. He overlooked or something now, but people forget he was a top 5 quarterback just 2 years ago. He had a 5,000, nearly 40 touchdown season, for goodness sakes. He can definitely carry a team. And even when the number 1 receiver is probably Josh fucking Palmer. That's such a joke, by the way. Josh fucking Palmer is your number 1 receiver. Anyway, the fans don't care because they don't show up anyway. What is that about? Do the Chargers actually have any fans? Or is it just LA influencers who come to the games? I don't understand. Anyway, moving on, we have the New York Jets. This is another team that is being overhyped, in my opinion. At what point are we going to look at Aaron Rodgers and realize enough is enough? Anyway, this roster is going to likely be incredible in a year or two, and they have a ton of young guys, but they have no chemistry and no proof of ability yet. I'm not going to say this team will make the playoffs over the Bills, Colts, Bengals, etc., until I see with my own eyes proof that Breece Hall is the chosen one. He also picked up receiver Mike Williams over the summer, who was looking incredible in the Chargers before he suffered an ACL tear, and he's a proven talent in the past. Anyway, that could help, but I think overall, the Jets just need to live with being near the top of the just average category. I will say this about this year. There's a clusterfuck of teams that could either shoot up to the top of the playoffs or fall into the vomit category. Or maybe not the vomit, but the Wendy's category. There's a lot of teams that can be categorized this way, and there might be a few more down here, as you can see. All right, the Panthers. I'm actually not willing to put the Panthers in the vomit category. I'll put them at close to the bottom of the Wendy's category. Look, I still don't like Bryce Young, and I know it was his rookie season, and bumps are expected, but this was just a really, really poor year. Now, I'll give him this. He led the league in yards lost due to sacks, and that's definitely not his fault. And it's hard to develop with a poor offensive line. Over the offseason, the Panthers added guard Damian Lewis, a proven talent, as well as a handful of defensive backs who are, I guess, slight upgrades. They also added Deontay Johnson, who should generally provide some lift to the offense. None of this means that the Panthers will be a genuinely good team, but at least they will get more than 2 wins. If Young has another year as poor as the last, with the improvements that the Panthers made, I'm not sure they give him another chance, or any other team. Now, here's a team that do deserve the vomit category, and I'm going to put them behind the Commanders. All right. Hey man, I love Big Dick Will Levis. Big Arm Will Levis, who had some great showings last season. One stands out in particular, of course, Miami. But the tight ends are still a vomit. So they did get Calvin Ridley, but I don't feel like the guy is going to come in and make a huge difference. And I'm not sure why people are acting like he will. They only managed to replace Derrick Henry with Tony Pollard, so that's definitely a downgrade. And their defense could be all right, but it's definitely not enough. I was going to put the Colts in the average category, but the more I think about it, the more I think they deserve a playoff spot. Now, I'm going to put them at the bottom because they're probably not even better than the Dolphins. Now, look, they almost made the wild card last year without Richardson. If the guy is anything close to what he's lived up to be, which admittedly I'm a little doubtful about, they should make the playoffs barely. There's even a chance they win the AFC South, but I think the Texans probably have the upper hand. But okay, Jonathan Taylor should have an incredible season, as the fantasy gurus all suggest. And the Colts still have a quality receiver in Pittman and a guy who has a shot at catapulting up the rankings in Josh Downs. That doesn't mean it's guaranteed, but I do feel pretty good about this team, so here they land for now. Okay, and lastly, we have the Jaguars. Dude, am I the only one who doesn't like Trevor Lawrence that much? I mean, I feel like he took a huge step back last year, throwing 6 more interceptions than he did in 2022 and 100 less yards. The team also didn't really change that much. Praying Christian Kirk is fully healthy this year and relying on Etienne the same way they did last year is probably asking a lot. So although it might be close, I don't think this team is making the playoffs. And I'm going to put them close to the top of the just average category. So that looks like the list. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to smash the like and smash the subscribe button. And let me know what your guys' hot takes are for this season. Again, like, these are all my opinions, and we have absolutely no clue who's going to actually come out on top. It's going to be the Chiefs, but I digress. So, yep, have a great day, y'all, and I hope you enjoy the first NFL games tomorrow. I'm excited. Let's fucking go.